All right, so there's some students here from the Imagine Cup. Tell us about what is the Imagine Cup? What's going on here?
The Imagine Cup's a technology competition aimed specifically at students. It's a great opportunity for us to get out there and develop some software that is for a specific target. This year in particular is health.
Okay, interesting. So there's a theme. What about technology? Do you have to use managed code?
We can use any .NET technology.
Okay. So it needs to be a .NET technology.
Yeah, so using things like web services, things like that.
Cool.
And of course like Windows Presentation Foundation and Communication Foundation.
Excellent. So who are you? Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
I'm James Lysiak from the UK, as you might guess by the accent.
Yeah.
Currently studying at Hull University, doing a .NET Masters, which is good for the competition since you have to...
Wow. So there's actually a Masters in .NET?
I think it's 2 universities is there in the UK,
something like that.
Sheffield and Hull. So.
Excellent. Right on.
Yep, so my name's Andy Sterland. I've just finished my undergraduate degree in software engineering, again at the University of Hull along with James and Tom.
Okay. And now you're in the Imagine Cup and hanging out in Redmond.
Yeah, which is pretty cool in this beautiful weather.
Yeah, definitely. Pretty strange.
I'm Tom Randall, also from the University of Hull, and I'm studying the same as James, the .NET Masters.
Excellent. So what did you guys build? Let's talk about like the high-level overview of your application. What is it?
Okay, so our application is all about helping people regain happy and healthy lives. It's focused on intensive care patients. So you mentioned the theme before about health, and we're no health experts. So we went and collaborated with a university teaching hospital in Manchester, and one of the doctors over there was a consultant on an intensive care ward, and he talked about all the problems that some of their patients have. And we focused on this idea of trying to help them rebuild their memories. Because they spend a lot of time in hospitals, they forget what happens because they're unconscious, etc., and they're pretty isolated. You're in hospital, you can't pick up the phone, ring your mum, that sort of thing. So we want to help those people keep in touch, help them remember what happened, and keep motivated. So after all, they've got to struggle, to get better. So
sure. So what did you build?
Well, basically we built an application that tries to solve all these things by letting the friends and family of the patient upload stories and events and with photos and videos about things that the patient, because they're in the ICU ward, intensive care unit, they're missing out on. So our application allows friends and family to give them these entries, and then the patient can view them on our application.
Sure.
And feel much more motivated because they know that their friends and family are still caring about them, even though because they may not be able to visit because of the distance away from where the hospital is and where they are.
Now, when the application is offline, are the friends and family still caring about them? In other words, did you make a smart client?
What we did is, even if the patient client isn't running, friends and family can still upload all this information. It's stored in a back-end server using Microsoft SQL Server, actually. And so what it does is that when the patient actually gets better to wake up from their coma, the system then pulls all the information from the database and can display it like that. So even when they're not actually using it, it's still collecting the information.
Sure.
And it's all stored locally on XML files, so if there's no network connection, it's offline, they can still get all the events that the patient's the friends and family previously uploaded. There's other things James did mention where friends and family can ring in. So, say your grandma, she can't use the internet, she might not be familiar with that, but she can still dial a phone, she can ring in, leave a voice message, so the patient can get that, can listen to the message, in their own time.
Excellent. Very cool. So what was the experience like working with these technologies? I mean, clearly, first of all, are you using WPF for your UI? I mean, what are you using? Ruby based? What's going on?
Yeah, well, at the moment we're using C# and WPF. I've been doing quite a bit of the UI design, so I've been using expressions with that, which is quite good fun.
Okay.
Can crash quite a bit, but...
Understood. Beta, CTP.
Yeah.
Very cool. And what's your experience been like working with XAML and WPF and stuff?
It's good. It's a learning experience for me because we've been doing a lot of back-end work at uni. So the move from back-end to UI has been really good. We've been concentrating on the experience, making it usable for our user group.
Sure. Excellent. So how do you guys divide the tasks? I mean, are one of you more of a systems guy, and then you have UI, and then you have data? I mean, like how does it work with your team?
So the way it works is we split it up into different components. So we have at the back end all the database, the SQL, store procedures, etc. Then a middle tier which consists of the web services, the business objects, and FFSQ and all sorts of different things. Then the UI components, the application, the rich WPF application, but also a website, and also the speech application. So basically each of us has taken one of those components, worked on it pretty much on our own, but then also when it comes to discussing how we work these things together, come together, work on each other's code. We discussed at the start, big architecture type thing, what the interfaces were.
Yeah.
So, what does Tom's client expect? He expects an XML document, what's in that document. Then James goes and makes the stubs for the web services, and then flesh it out from there.
Excellent.
In fact, when we developed it, we kind of used a Scrum-based approach. We'd have weekly sprints, a lot shorter than normal sprints. We say at the end of this week we want a feature done. We put it up on the whiteboard. Then each day we'd come down and make task lists for the day, put them on a whiteboard, a separate one, basically work on those each day. We've also used things like Team Foundation Server and stuff like that.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. How was that?
It was good. It was a good experience because we used to use, what was it called?
SourceSafe.
SourceSafe.
Yes.
That's not the best application out there. But so moving to Team Foundation Server, once we got over the initial start of how to actually use it and how all the bits fit together, it was really good because we even managed to integrate a deploy system so that when every day, I think it's at 2 a.m. in the morning or something, it runs through all our code and builds it and creates an actual deployment file that we can double click and run, and it clears all the previous installation and then puts a new one up for that day. So any one of us, or anyone really, who can download it, can run it on their laptop to set it up ready for a demo.
Excellent. Now, did you write unit tests and take advantage of those functionality, or?
So I guess that's our one sin, as it were. Perhaps on the testing front, we've focused more on usability sort of testing, as in people seeing it, rather than the sort of functional testing, because time's short, and it's tough to write unit tests for every specific thing, especially when it changes so much. Every time someone sees the application, they go, "Oh, wouldn't it be great to have this," and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's tough, but it's something obviously going to think about in the future when we want to make it.
When you want to make it a real deal.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
It probably is. So how did you test? Do you have friends play with it and give you feedback, or what?
Yeah, basically we've been mocking up applications, versions, and passing them around to Mark and our tutors, our mentors, and our friends, my girlfriend, and they just have a look at it, play around with it, see if what they think, whether it's usable.
Okay.
We've got it as a basic 4-button interface, so we've been trying to check that they think that that's okay in the way it's working.
Cool. Now, when you had, say, your girlfriend use your application, did you just sit and watch her try to use it, and you kind of analyze that, or did you really interact?
If she felt it felt right.
Cool. So, did you do a lot of flashy kind of 3D stuff? Take advantage of WPF? I mean,
it's pretty difficult to do that because, like I said, our user group's very specific, and these people are just coming out of comas. They're on morphine. And
so you don't want to make it too out of control.
Because they don't know where they are.
Understood.
Yeah,
okay, so interesting.
So I think one of the other things the user base, like Tom said, there's only 4 buttons and there's no context switching, so there's no menus, nothing like that. So it's not like your classic application where you have like a right-click context menu and stuff like that. It is just the arrow keys used. Because these people, flashy graphics are all well and good, but you don't want to be taking morphine and think that something's going horribly wrong.
Sure.
So
just for a little historical perspective, how did you guys get involved in this, and how did you pick out your team? So how did that, just to give the users a little background.
The team came together because, we all live in the same house, really.
Okay.
And we've entered the Imagine Cup before, and so we thought this year we'd enter it as a team, the 3 of us, so we did. But we needed an idea, and we're not experts on health, so we asked around, and we got in contact with a consultant at Manchester Hope Hospital, which is kind of near where we live, sort of. So we went over there, and we discussed with this clinician. Is he a clinician?
Yeah, a clinician lecturer.
A doctor, Dr. Paul Dark, and we discussed about how he thought patients could be solved. Patients could be solved? How problems with
problems
the
of
patients,
Sure.
could be solved with technology, and using that we kind of threw ideas around and came up with the idea that we have now.
Excellent.
It's interesting because, from a medical point of view, it's really forward-looking because medical technology doesn't move as quickly as the computer industry. We've spent some time on the ward, on the intensive care wards, shadowing doctors and things like that, and some of the equipment is just almost, like 10, 20-year-old ventilating machines, things like that.
Sure.
They've got these old machines running a VB6 application that log the health rate and stuff like that on this old Dell machine, which is in a beige box. Just that old.
Wow.
And he was just saying how technology's moved on so far, but perhaps there's something, some of the new stuff could be helpful to his patients.
Absolutely. And how would the patients, where would the interface be? Clearly they're not going to have a computer screen on top of where they eat, for example. So how are you going to do tablet PC? What kind of form factor do you picture your app being run in?
At the moment, we're basically envisioning that it would be one of those retractable arms that you get within an intensive care unit. You've just got a monitor on there, and they can pull it in and out as and when they need it. Or not them, the nursing staff or family.
I see. And how do you separate families? Basically you're just going to have databases with IDs.
Yeah.
So, and you're going to use the person's, whatever personal information.
So it's got this social networking idea of people inviting people. So the hospital obviously know the next of kin because they need that for their records and things like consent and assent. So the next of kin can start off by inviting people she knows, then other people can invite other people, building up this network of people that directly know the person themselves, even if they don't know each other. So that's all stored obviously in the back end in a very boring relational way.
Sure.
There's about 16 tables worth of information, but
That's cool. Now you use SQL Server 2005, right?
Yeah.
Did you write your stored procedures in C# at all? Did you take advantage of that? What do you think of that?
Well, we didn't try that.
Okay.
Perhaps we should have done. Currently it's all written in SQL.
Transact SQL,
yeah, TSQL.
which you knew ahead of time,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, just about. We kind of dabbled with it before, so it was a learning experience. But as we develop the application even further past the Imagine Cup, we'll be able to upgrade and change it so it does use C# and things.
Okay, so once again, it's like a 3-tier model.
Yeah.
You have the client.
That's the
web
other thing
services.
about using T-SQL, C#, the hosted CLR in SQL, is that it kind of breaks that model, because we've got that right now. We've got our web services, our Windows services, and all that sat in a separate layer away from the database. So it's not dependent on the database providing web service methods. So, you've got you can break out your clients and your servers and things like that. I guess that's what we know, NGR architecture, that kind of broke against the grain, so we didn't really go for it.
Sure. Well, that's fine. You use the right tool for the job. If you know Transact SQL, use Transact SQL.
Yeah.
The good thing about writing them in C# is you're able to actually debug, right?
Yeah.
And step through a debugger, because in Transact SQL you can't do that.
Yeah.
So you just have to write your little variables and then just see the value, run it and look at the value to debug, which is kind of not really programming style. But excellent. So what do you think? You getting excited about tomorrow? Tomorrow's the day you're going to meet Bill and
Very
other executives and show off your stuff. Are you a little nervous or what?
Terrified.
Terrified? He's a nice guy.
Yeah. Doing a live demo and such, I'm hoping it's not going to crash. That's the main thing.
It's not going to crash.
It shouldn't do. We've done plenty of testing, but you know what these things are like. Live demos is you press a button and suddenly the error box comes up. No, that shouldn't happen.
Yeah, just put a try-catch around all your codes.
Yeah, don't even get started on try catches.
No, it'll be fine.
Yeah, so long as the speech server holds up and recognizes his voice or our voice.
So is this going to be the first time you guys have demoed the software in front of an audience of any type?
Other
a little
than a
nervous?
few guys at Microsoft and at Hull, yeah, pretty much. We're obviously very nervous, but it's going to be an experience and a great opportunity.
Cool. So let's talk about your experience of writing on the platform. What kind of recommendations? Now, product teams watch these videos, right? So, do you have any recommendations for the next version of Managed Code that you could say, hey, it'd be nice if rock and roll, speak your mind.
It'd be nice if Windows Presentation Foundation didn't crash quite so much. But
Well, it is in beta.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, they're definitely working on that one.
So there's a few interesting bugs we got because of where we've got one, in fact, which James did, where we clear a canvas and if it fails, which it always does, throws an exception, catch the exception, do the same method again, and it works fine.
Interesting.
So
So there are a few things like that that we'd like to get rid of. But working with it's been good.
Yeah?
I mean, yeah. It's a learning experience, as I said, but once you've got the basic stuff down, you can pretty much code away. And
I mean, some of that D-Link stuff, because we've got a lot of stuff like data mappers we take from the relational tables down to objects, so that would save a lot of effort, being able to just directly interface with, well, not directly obviously, but interface more directly with the database, not having to make all these loader classes and things like that.
Gotcha.
It should save a lot of effort.
So just programming against data in your generic code.
Exactly, so you
code.
don't have to build up all these complicated data mappers that take the tables, figure out which parts match, which member variables, etc.
Sure.
Reduce the factory class and all that stuff.
Well, it's coming.
Yeah.
That's cool. Excellent. Well, I mean, thanks for coming on Channel 9, and good luck tomorrow.
Thanks.
We'll probably see you guys around, because Channel 9 will be there.
Just so you don't disappear in a puff of smoke.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys will be fine. So, welcome to Redmond. Thanks for spending a little time with us.
Thank you.